Yeah, good morning, everyone.
Yes, I
Officially,
should do the same.
we are happy to have you here.
Happy to be
This
here.
is the fourth installment of what we call the Talk series. And it is that a group of us from alumni wanted to be able to give back in a different way. Normally, people only think of alumni as money manufacturers and gift givers. But we recognize that there are other things that people could give and people wanted to give, like advice to the others that are coming up, or information for how you get to the next step in your life. And so we dreamt up and devised and came up, Lisa and I, with this thing called the Talk series. Out of it, we have had past students step back in to give back to students. And we are grateful this morning to have Mr. Sekani Solomon be with us to share how it was at Bishop's. I know he's one of them because I heard from another person he wasn't too happy in Bishop's, and I'm so happy to find one like him. Although he wasn't happy, he found a way, and now he's still the success that he is. So he's going to share with us this morning his thoughts about Bishop's High School, how he transitioned into the next phase of his life, and what his future looks like. I hope it will be inspirational for you, and you will ask a lot of questions.
Yes.
Fair enough?
Yes.
Yeah? I know this class has a lot of lawyers in there, so I'm looking forward to hearing. So, Sekani, we have a little intro thing. Who is to do the intro?
I'm doing this intro.
Okay.
So,
Hi,
Go ahead.
Brittany.
hi, Sekani, how you doing?
Good.
Okay, so Sekani Solomon is an award-winning creative director and 3D design generalist based in New York City. His work awards include a Primetime Emmy Award and a Young Gun 17 Award. You also saw some of his work on the movie Black Panther in 2018. Sekani's diverse skill set in design, animation, and compositing allows him to work at any stage of the production pipeline with a high level of proficiency. He currently leads motion design at the world's fastest growing fintech company, Cash App. Hailing from Hope, Sekani graduated from Bishop's High School, Tobago in 2009 and earned his Bachelor's of Fine Arts in Motion Media Design at the Savannah College of Art and Design in 2014. You can check out more of his work at www.sekanimotiondesign.com. At this point in time, I would like to open the floor to Mr. Sekani Solomon.
Hello. Good morning. Thank you for such an amazing open, Brittany. As you mentioned, my name is Sekani Solomon. I just wanted to also thank you guys for having me and hosting me. I'm pretty excited to impart some knowledge to everyone today. I'm just going to share my screen. I created a little presentation. Let me know if everyone could see my screen. Just give me a thumbs up. Yes? Okay, cool. All right. So,
Sekani, before you continue, sorry to cut you off. I think there's some more people in the waiting room.
okay. I will just hold on. But yeah, in terms of Bishops, though, it's not
Connie, as the host, you're gonna have to let them in.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. See.
Yeah, so just hit admit all.
Let me stop sharing first. I rarely ever use Zoom. Typically use Hangouts.
So click on the just click on the participants
Yeah. Okay. God says.
button. Okay.
On participants. Admit all. It was 14 minutes.
Yeah.
So 14. Joining.
Yeah, and
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. You're just waiting for one person. All right, it seems like everybody's in. Okay. All right, I will go share screen again.
This
Everyone
is class 3A4 joining us.
Nice. You said 3 or 4?
Yeah.
Is it 3 or 4 now? Okay.
Yeah.
You'll need to
You
wrap
have
up.
grown.
Right. Larger school. All right, so well, just did the introduction for those who are just coming in. So I created a little presentation just to keep everything very concise and to the point. So let's just jump in. So who am I? As Brittany mentioned, I'm an award-winning creative director and 3D design journalist based in New York. Worked on a wide range of things from TVs, movies, commercials, and now I'm focused on building brands in the tech world. So currently I lead motion design at Cash App. For those of you who don't know what Cash App is, it's the fastest growing financial tech company in the world. Yeah, I'll jump into all things Cash App a little bit later on. But before, I think we have 4 people who meet in the room again. So I will just let those people in quick. So we're just waiting on those people to join.
Sekani, make Lisa or myself co-host so that we can do that while you present.
Okay. Let me see. How would I do that?
Find my name.
Found it.
Go across to more.
Or make a host.
And then make co-host, yeah.
Seeing it. And let me see if I can find this out. Or if you're a host, you could add this out.
I'm not even. Yes, it should be.
Okay.
On another device, yeah.
Let me just see if I can find it because it's. Wait, no, I think I see.
So I'll deal with that for you so that you can present.
All right, perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let me make sure I'm sharing the screen. You guys see my screen right now or no?
No.
No.
Oh, it says host has disabled participant screen sharing, so I think you need to enable.
Miss,
So I
you
think-
can enable your participant screen sharing for him to be able to share his screen.
Right. So you're back up.
Back up. All right, perfect. Everyone can see my screen again?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So typically when I do a presentation, it's usually a lot more visual, but since this is more of like an advice presentation, it's going to be a lot more words. But I love to kick off a presentation with my reel just to give you an idea of the type of work I do. So I'm just going to play this. It might come over a little bit choppy, but I'll leave you guys a link so you can kind of watch it on your own time as well. So I'm not sure how choppy that came across, but I will leave a link after the chat so everyone can see in their own time. All right, let's jump into the presentation. So how did I get started on this career path? It started out right when I was in Tobago and Hope. I used to draw a lot of Dragon Ball Z. I used to make all toys from cardboard and tape. And actually, when I was at Bishop's, I think like second form or so, second form, third form, I started messing around with like Photoshop or just experimenting with digital art. And when I was like in third form and it was time to choose subjects, I was like, I don't really see me having a career in art. So I dropped art. I didn't do art as a subject. It was all sciences, fourth form, fifth form, even sixth form was all sciences and information technology. I thought I was going to be a software engineer. But Mr. Batiste, he was designing like the version 1 of the Bishop's High School website. And I had some experience in Photoshop. So I was like, oh, I could go help design it. And then by the time I actually got back on the internet and I was like looking up Photoshop stuff, I was like, wow, the landscape has really changed in terms of education. There's a lot more tutorials and a lot more websites that are teaching you how to do this stuff. So I just kind of got obsessed, and I was like making a bunch of little photo edits over time. This is between 2008 and 2010, for right when I was going to college. But obviously then started like this to look a lot worse. So these are like after a year or two of just playing around with Photoshop and really starting to get my feet wet in that world, and obviously touching animation and some of that stuff throughout that time in my sixth form year going into college. So getting into business. So honestly, when I think about my life, I think after sixth form was probably one of the most turbulent times, because that's the time where you have to start figuring out what you're going to do with your life. And at that point, I didn't really have like a clear direction. I studied sciences my whole high school life, and now I just discovered this new art thing. So, at first when I was applying to colleges, I was like, let me go do software engineering, and then I switched to graphic design over time. But before I even knew I was going to college, I was like, I'm going to start a business. So at 19, I started a business called Blacklight Graphics. This was officially registered business in Tobago. And the major roadblock I ran into was that there isn't really as much of a design, industry just locally. So, I would go in the barbershop, I try to hustle, hey, I'm making business cards, but then you look at the business cards, like, why does this cost more than this guy who can make it for me over there? And I was like, well, because design is better, which would help you to get better business. But the one thing about design is understanding the value in the product, and I think locally sometimes we don't see that value. So it was that point I realized, well, I probably would have to leave or go elsewhere if I had to achieve my goals, just because I wasn't in a position to start an entirely new market locally. But it's something that I could probably do based down in the future. So I ended up applying to 2 or 3 schools, ended up getting accepted to the Savannah College of Art and Design in Georgia. But that was also a very bittersweet moment for me, because it's a very expensive school, and I got a scholarship, but it wasn't enough to cover everything. But I got lucky enough too that I got a scholarship from the Tobago House of Assembly, which helped. And then my parents was like, "Oh well, we will help you pay," which was a amazing blessing. But before making that decision, there's some very, very, very key things that I had to take into consideration. One, like if you're choosing a field of study and you're going to college, you really have to assess like what you're studying to see if college makes sense. Because I typically see college as like a business investment, especially like if your parents or your family's spending a lot of money. And if you're going to go abroad, you're going to spend like 100,000 US, 200,000 US on school or whatever the cost is, and you're coming out to get a job that's going to pay like a fraction of that. Does it make sense to go to school and study this specific thing? And this more pertains to, I guess, more creative fields like design or graphic design or motion design, or even like software engineering and stuff like that. A lot of these things you could just learn online. You could do online courses, and a college degree is no longer a barrier to entry for a lot of fields, especially in tech. So that's one thing you need to assess, or I at least assessed. And I figured motion design or graphic design was a good field. There are a lot of job opportunities. Every company needs design, and this is something that's needed globally. Another thing I realized that if I was going to go abroad to study, it doesn't make sense to come right back home when I was finished, because I'd be put in the exact same position I was in when I left. Because sometimes we have this notion that when you go to college and you finish like university, you suddenly have all this knowledge, which isn't really the case. Most of the times when you leave college, you're pretty much you're not far from where you started. Most of your experience and your knowledge comes from working within your field and getting that experience. So if you go to college just to come right back, that's something you might also want to consider. You really, if you get like a local scholarship, I don't know, it's good to try to have that conversation to maybe defer coming back as soon as you finish, just to get some work experience, because that's how you really gain that knowledge and you're better able to make a contribution having worked in the field. But also I was like, well, you know, if I'm going to college, if I'm making this investment, I have to try to work on the top of my field. And, you know, to do the best that I can, because my parents are making such a huge investment in me. Everyone's making such a huge investment. You know, you have to make the most of this opportunity. And then, you know, lastly, a lot of us, you know, tend to have this notion that I went to college, I get a college degree, I want my job right now, when really in the real world, a college degree doesn't really say much. What employers look for are people that could tangibly make a contribution, because they're running a business and they're hiring somebody to help their business grow. So usually with jobs, it's about your ability to make a tangible contribution versus having some type of accreditation or a piece of paper. And that's why it's important to, when you're in school, and this may be more so for like people doing like software engineering or like, you know, fashion design or makeup or design, is that don't depend on school to give you all your skills. You should be learning in your free time, looking at tutorials, reading, just constantly growing your art, growing your skill. If you're trying to be a doctor or lawyer, they might have a more, what should I say, streamlined process where like, this is the curriculum and these are the things you have to do. Because there's certainly legalities that goes with being a doctor and a lawyer. But for most of our professions, you know, there's a lot of stuff you could kind of learn in addition to your schooling. And another thing with that is that you need to get, if you can get internships while you're in school, that means you're getting experience while you're in college or university is going to make you even more valuable when you leave. So for me, for example, when I went to SCAD, I had 4 internships while I was at school. So I would do like winter quarter, then over the summer, I'd work with a company, then I'll go right back at school. Then winter again, I'll go work at a company. Just because I knew if I was in the States, you know, staying in the States and guarantee me visas and stuff, and that's a whole process I probably won't get into. But again, it's very key to get as much experience as possible before you graduate, because when you graduate, you'll have an advantage over your counterparts. So at Imaginary Forces, which is the company I landed a job at before I graduated college, which was fortunate for me because I had gotten that experience while I was at school. I worked on a few really amazing projects. The Manhattan main title, that's essentially the opening animation for a TV show that won a main title Emmy Award. This was like my first or second year of my professional life, which was amazing. Then I worked on this TV show called Vinyl, which was directed by Martin Scorsese. He had, you know, Mick Jagger was attached to it, like a lot of big names. Funny story, I'm actually in that main title on TV on HBO right now as a little Easter egg. Maybe I'll look on my website and show that real quick, because I always find that's a fun Easter egg. I won't show the whole title, but I'll just show where I cap. So that's me in the main title for HBO show directed by Martin Scorsese. So that was a fun little tidbit. And then I got to work on a Dolby Elements trailer. The Dolby Theater is a type of high-end theater we have in the United States. And, you know, I got to work on the opening for that, which plays on every Dolby Theater across the US, across the world. And then got to work on the Dolby Element trailer, which was like the first thing that they released in those cinemas. And in addition to this, I got to work on a bunch of other TV shows and other fun projects, which was great for my career. So the strategic advantage I think that I had just with my career was the following things I listed. I kind of thought about it in terms of like what things students should be taken into consideration to put them ahead of the rest when they're thinking about like what they should be doing with their lives. So one advantage I think I had was that I started doing design and motion before I started studying. So if you want to be like a fashion designer, if you want to be a rapper, if you want to be a musician, whatever the case may be, you know, you should be doing that right now. You should be honing your skills. You should be practicing. So whenever you decide to go study it more, you know, you'll be ahead of the game. When I graduated, I had more experience than my college classmates because I was doing personal projects and I was doing internships trying to get more experience and not just depending on my school education to put me ahead. Then also I chose 3D motion design, which was more of a specific job that was higher in demand, that had less competition, and was technically more difficult. So another thing is, trying to figure out, well, if I'm doing this, what jobs in here are like most in demand, and where can I apply my skills where I'm more likely to get hired? That's another thing you should be thinking about. And then this is me personally. Usually in motion design, you have people that do like animation, or just design, or just modeling, or just lighting. But I kind of practice do all of it. So then I can come to a company and I can say, well, I can make this commercial for you from start to finish. So essentially, I'm replacing like a $500,000 job with myself. And what that's doing is providing more value for that company while I stand to make more because I'm doing more. So those are the types of things you should be thinking about when you're thinking about your career. What are these things I can do that will put me ahead, that will put me above the people I'm competing against? And another thing to think about is where to play, like where to apply those skills. So take me for example, where I actually like to use this Serena Williams example, right? So imagine you have Serena Williams, world champion in tennis, and then there's a world badminton player, right? Both of them top tier talents, but yet Serena Williams stands to make way more money and way more success than that world-class badminton player. And the reason that is because where she decided to apply those skills. Had Serena decided to play badminton, there's a cap off at like where she could achieve just because of the market of that sport, versus tennis is a higher ceiling. So therefore, if you really plan where you want to apply your skills or where you choose to play, that can really determine how far you can reach in terms of career. So for me, I was assessing, okay, like where's the best market to apply my skills? And by far it's in the United States. It used to be particularly in the big cities like New York or LA, but the world's becoming a lot more decentralized. But generally in the United States, they pay the most for work. But when I think about, well, had I remained in Trinidad and Tobago, I probably would have achieved, I guess, a fraction. Just because the market here is a lot smaller. So for me, I had to make a conscious decision, like where to apply these skills to reach further ahead in my career. But there's good news. There's good news to all of this, right? The job markets and jobs are no longer geo-locked. Say, for example, I'm having this presentation from New York while you guys are in Tobago. So the good thing is now you have access to global markets. You could be in Tobago, you could be working with clients in Australia, you could be working with clients in Germany. So when you say where to play, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to leave, but more so you should be thinking about where you want to work in terms of applying the skills. But the thing is, the bar to entry to work in those places is needing the skills and experience to work in these markets. Like me having, currently leading a team and I'm trying to find talent to add to my team, it's very difficult because it's hard to find people that has the right skill set that could work on that high level. So I say all this to say there's so many opportunities that exist out there. But the only thing barring, like if any of you guys had the experience and the skills, I could hire you guys right now. But the bar to entry is the skills and the knowledge. I'm not sure how we're doing on time, but that just kind of caps off what I think, in terms of stuff you should be thinking about in terms of your careers and how you should be approaching it. Usually I would just jump into like a bunch of my work and some of my films, like, working on Black Panther, or like my film Star Wars The Last Stand, which I think at this point probably has close to 4 million views on YouTube, but I kind of want to keep it a little bit more career focused. But we could always just jump into the chat and see if you guys have more questions. So you guys let me know what you want me to discuss. But yeah, this is essentially my path to being where I am right now. And I'll just let anyone, I guess, Miss James, you could jump in and see how best to move forward, because I could just keep talking for the rest of the entire presentation.
That's nice.
Thank you. You guys can let me know. You want me to just keep showing you guys more stuff, or?
Well, all the questions on them that I had, well, at the start of the presentation, I just kind of answered them going through the presentation. So I don't have any more questions.
Basically.
Great.
I have some questions of my own. Right now, I do graphic designs, like simple graphic designs, so like t-shirts and so that I sell online. But I really and truly want to do these kind of, how to say, more expert, more, how to say, more advanced type of graphics and these effects. What advice would you have for someone like me who wants to start out to do these type of things?
Yeah, that's a very good question. First thing I always say is you really need to figure out exactly what you want to do, because even in this career path, there's so many different jobs and stuff you could do. So first thing, get acquainted with like the different opportunities. Like this, for example, this is more 3D animation, motion design. And then there's like visual effects, which is more like working on movies, trying to make a shot look really good, or trying to, I don't know, create a shot that you can't shoot with a camera, or creating fantastical effects. And then there's more like animation, like Pixar. So really beginning to figure out like where you want to fall within that category and where you want to apply some of those skills. Because like for me, I work more in advertising, a little bit in film, a little bit of TV, and tech. And the second thing you want to do is trying to figure out some of the software you use to create some of this stuff. So say, for example, and I realize you guys didn't hear.
But right now, I don't have the necessary equipment to really process that level of application on my device as yet.
Yeah, that's fine. Like when I started off, I probably had a computer. This was like 11 years ago. So the computer I had, I'm sure is at the level yours is right now, if not worse.
I think might be worse, but my laptop, if I try to process anything, I might as well sit down whole day and I mightn't reach anyway.
Right. Well, with that being said, there's still a lot of things you could do, and a lot of it is just doing research as to like, you know, what jobs and what industries there exist. And then, I mean, the software part and like the learning part is the part that you can't escape. You know, and that's where you have to make an investment into the right equipment. You know, like say if you wanted to do like study to be a doctor, you know, you still have to buy equipment for going to medical school, or say with being a lawyer, I have to buy books. Same thing with this, you know, you just have to get a decent computer to be able to start, even if it's just learning Photoshop or start, you know, learning 3D, you know, that investment just has to be made. But the good news is, just in terms of like what it took to make some of these visuals, like even 4 or 5 years ago, it's a lot easier now than it was. So, I mean, that's good. But if I had to sum it up again, really start getting acquainted with some of the jobs and fields that exist within the school, and then really begin to start figuring out, okay, what software are they using? And typically it's not a lot. If you're doing motion design, using After Effects or Cinema 4D, if you're doing visual effects, using Maya, Houdini, Nuke, and pretty much the same with animation. It's not. So yeah, and then from there you hone your skills. Networking is also key. Just getting connected with people in the industry to give you advice. People like me. The good news is that usually if you reach out to people, they would respond with some type of advice. People hit me up all the time, just trying to get advice. Like, what should I do? Where should I apply my skills? What should I be doing better? And I always respond. So,
Thank you.
sure thing.
Danny, could you go back and try again to make me co-host? Because apparently people are in the waiting room still trying to get in.
Okay. Let me try again. I don't see anybody in the waiting room right now.
Miss Ryan just came knocking apparently.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm actually.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good morning, Sekani.
Good morning, Miss Ryan. How you doing? Okay, I'll make you the host again.
No, not host, co-host.
Oh, co-host. I don't see that option though.
Oh.
It just says make host.
Okay. Don't stress that. Continue along. Who not in here? The arc is closed.
Yeah, just make me the host, and I'll handle it, Sekani.
Okay.
Lizelle.
Hold on. My thing wasn't open. I'll have to find it. All right, you are now the host.
Okay, great.
All right, well, if there aren't any more questions, I'm kind of curious to see what some of you guys are wanting to pursue.
Wait. I have a question. Do you
Yes.
have any recommended apps, mobile and desktop, that you could use to make animations? Or
Yeah, good question. Typically, it's a tough question only because getting into this field requires, like, there's two tracks, right? There's the software side of it, and that teaches you just, okay, how to move things or how to create something. But then there's the artistic side of it, where you have to understand design, understand lighting, understand color, understand making a concept. And when you put those two together, that's how you get motion being the technical part and design being the artistic part. So just as much as you put emphasis on, like, all right, learning a piece of software, you could be a master of a piece of software, but if you don't know how to design, it might look, oh, that's a cool explosion,
So are you saying that sometimes that two persons could come together to make one animation? Who is more professional in software and who is professional in the other, and you two come together to make one product?
Yeah, exactly. Like, no thing you see on TV is made by one person. All these things are made with large teams. You ever realize when you watch a movie, there's a long
list of people, yes.
Right. It takes, like, for movies, there's just so much work to be done. It takes hundreds of people, if not thousands, a lot of money to get those movies done. But it also depends on, like, what specific thing you're going to be doing, what part of the process you're going to be in. And maybe I could, am I still sharing screen?
No.
Okay, let me try. I think Lisa needs to enable me to share screen.
I am. If it's a link, just drop the link in the chat, and folks can pull it up that way, and then we'll have to figure out this hosting thing for the next time.
Okay. Well, I kind of want to, like, point and talk.
You have to,
okay.
You have to press the shield icon. There's a shield icon, and that's how you could enable him to share screen.
I'm trying, and I'm just not seeing it at all. It's really weird.
But let's one of the young people try, because
I know, right?
So
which
make me host, and I will Fix up.
Who are you, Zavi?
Zero. Yes, miss.
All right. And if you can't do it, we'll buff you.
Oh, bless.
All right, you organize.
Excuse, I have a question.
Shoot.
Could you give me an approximate sum of money you could make from one animation?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I mean, I wouldn't really, put it like that. It more so would be like how much you could make in a year. Typically, how you would price the stuff is usually by time. Like you have a day rate. In the US, I would say like a typical motion designer could make between 300 US a day to 1500 US a day. And if you're at a tech company, those salaries could go in all kinds of crazy places. You can make 100,000 US a year. You can make 600,000 US a year. You can make 50,000 US a year. It really depends on how you approach your career and where you end up. Like, this is typically how, I guess, pricing goes in terms of where you are in the industry and how much money you can make. If you go to a game studio or a production studio, like a motion design studio, probably salaries are like, I don't want to say on the lower end, but probably like, I don't know, between 30 to 200,000 maybe. Then advertising, okay, let me restart that. It all depends on the industries. If you're doing game design or visual effects or animation, salaries are probably on the, I don't want to say lower end, but the lower end if you think of it as a spectrum. Then if you're doing advertising, motion design, then your salaries get higher. But then if you go into tech, the tech field definitely has the largest salaries, just because if you look at like Google or Apple or those companies, I mean, like Apple is worth $1 trillion. Google is somewhere around there. Microsoft is the same thing. These companies just have, so much money that they pay their employees very, very well. So it really depends. But if you're good at what you do, you could definitely have a rewarding career. I'll say that.
You could go ahead and share your screen.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I'll use like, to the question of, multiple people working on projects. So like the Black Panther project, how do I mean this? This was like a team of, I want to say 6 or 7 people. What I was brought on to do was figure out the aesthetic of the piece. So that means like, how do we create the sand texture? How do we get it to look like this? How does it look visually? And then, we had other people just doing other tasks. So I say, for example, I worked on the look and then I worked on these shots, these 2 shots. But then we had someone else like animating these sand particles, moving like that or setting up these scenes. And then we had, somebody else animating this shot. And then we had, someone else animating these sand particles. And then we had somebody else putting together the entire edit. So usually, these types of productions take, a few people to create. Now, this is like what, I'll just let this play. It's like a 2-minute animation. For a team of 5 people to have done this in like a month and a half, or maybe, how long we worked on this? Like 2 months, was pretty insane. This is by far one of the craziest projects I worked on.
2 months? Wow.
Yeah, I mean, like I would start with 9 o'clock in the morning and sometimes 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock. Some nights I left the office like 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, and come back at 9 o'clock to get this done. The production of this main title was insane. But I'm just saying, that I want to say it's usually like a team effort when it comes to this type of thing. Now, typically how I work, as I mentioned in my bio, I could kind of do everything. So I can animate, I could design, I could texture, I could light, I could create something from start to finish. But most motion designers don't do that. They're a designer and they just create still frames and they're like, well, this is how it's going to look. And then they pass it on to a team of animators and they bring it on to life. Or some people just animate. They work with a designer and then those people design it and figure out the aesthetic and, you bring it to life. But like the difference between like motion design where you're working on commercial work, you typically do more, but say in visual effects, where you have like tens of people or hundreds of people working on a film, everything is very, very specialized and segregated. So you have like, and I'll just pause on a shot. So you have like one person that's just, and maybe this may not be the best example because there's not like too many things going on, but in visual effects, you have one person, all they're doing is animation. You have another person, another team.
So how do you all be able to be more organized in who doing what and to keep that balance, because it's a lot of people to do so many things?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because they have people that's their job to do that. They're called producers. You ever see like a TV show, you see like producer, executive producer, da, 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 da. Their jobs is to organize that entire production. You have schedules, they have documents, they have shots, everything's very organized. You're working on this thing for this amount of time, you need to get it done by this. This is the time you get to review. And that's typically how like larger productions would work. But like this is an example of like what a style frame would be like. A designer would make something like this and then pass it on to a team to create. But something like my film Star Wars: The Last Stand, which is something for the most part that I created myself, but this was such a huge project for me. I had to get help. Like I had my buddy Turos design this interface, and then I just took that and animated it within the shot. But if this was like a large visual effects film, there would be someone that's responsible for the texturing. When I say texturing, I mean like figuring out exactly how to make this stormtrooper feel metal, dialing in all these scratches and like all the little details that make it feel real. That would be like one team's job. And then it would be another team's job to create the model, which is actually creating the digital version of that stormtrooper. And then there would be another team whose job it is to light. And when you say light, you ever go into like a photo shoot and they're putting up the lights? It's the same thing in 3D. You just do it digitally. So I have to light the scene. I have to put a light here to get this light to look like this. And then there's another team that just does all the little particles you see here, and then all the smoke, and then all the cracking, and all the lasers. And then there's another team that just puts everything together in a process called compositing. It's kind of like the final color correct, or when you put in like computer graphics into like a live action plate, there's another team that does that. So within this field, there are a lot of different things you can do, but because where my interests lie within storytelling and really good visuals, which forced me to learn like storytelling and design. So, I could think conceptually and I could make good ideas, but also I had to learn like the technical software to be able to create them. So I don't work on a lot of movies, like, because I'm not a visual effects person. And in visual effects, it's like, we need to make this water bottle look exactly the same, and we need the refraction to be perfect. It's very specialized and it's very precise. Versus motion design typically could take so many different forms. It could be 2D, it could be 3D. It's more art based and it's more about visual communication. It's about solving a problem. So, again, like if you've seen an animated commercial on TV, that's even that stuff is such a process to bring to screen. You know, you have a client and then you have an agency, and the agency usually comes up with the idea. The agency then goes to the production studio to get the project done or to get the animation done. And you know, in the production studio, they have to find X amount of artists to get that done, and that's comprised of like designers, animators, 3D people, 2D people, whatever the job requires to get you know, that project done. So just a wide range of things you can do. Yeah, just fun fact about, you know, motion design, working in tech. You know, there's so much demand for what I do. Like I'm getting job offers probably on a weekly basis, not to toot my own horn, but just to say like there's so much demand for like this type of work, to be able to take a brand, like even I'm just going to go to Cash App on the App Store, which is the company I work for now. Just being able to go in the App Store and, you know, to design stuff like this in this type of space where everything is typically 2D and flat. You know, there is a lot of value there. You know, like Square is a company that's worth like $100 billion in USD, and Cash App is a subsidiary of that company. And then if you have the opportunity to design this type of stuff for a company that, you know, it's worth that much money, you bring a lot of value to the table. But again, it's just a matter of being able to work on that level and figuring out, as I said, like where to play it, where can you get the most value for your experience. If I was working, and let me illustrate it to you like this. So a company like Cash App would be the client, and how a typical company would do it, they would go to an ad agency, which is like the middleman, and then they would go on a production studio, which is on the bottom. So I used to work at a production studio when I first started out, which was Imaginary Forces. But then I was like, well, if I go to work directly for the client, I could get more value for the work I'm doing. So now, instead of going to an agency and then a studio, they could just come to me and I could do the work for them, and I'm saving them a lot of money and I can make more money. So, you know, just looking at whatever industry that you're going into and figuring out, well, these are like, I'm seeing the market structures. Where can I position myself to provide more value, to prop myself up so I could become more successful in whatever I'm doing?
Excuse me, sir. I just want to know, do you have any experience with like voice actors? Because I know if you're doing the graphic design, it would kind of have to correspond with that.
Yeah, that's a great question. We actually have a commercial that we're going to be rolling out next month, and we're in the process of finding voice actors and writing scripts for those commercials. But yeah, again, all these things are just like different people's jobs. So say if I'm directing this commercial, I'm working with my copywriter. I have a meeting with him this morning, and we're going to come up with some scripts for that commercial. And then we're going to look through a bunch of talents. We're going to audition a bunch of people. And then, you know, we'll pick the voice actor that we like and we'll run with it there. But yeah, you know, commercials do use actors and VOs, and there's a process that we go through to find the right people.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
So like,
I'm really looking forward for those apps though.
Wait, say that again?
For beginners, the animation apps, I'm really looking forward to it. So.
Oh, yeah. So the main softwares, I would say Cinema 4D. This is, if you're doing 3D motion design, Cinema 4D is probably what you're looking for. If you're doing 2D animation, you probably want to use something like After Effects. And again, this really depends on like what type of work you're trying to do. And I hope you're taking these down. If you're trying to do 3D motion design, Cinema 4D. This is the software that I use. This is my bread and butter. I'm sure you are acquainted with the Adobe Suite, and that is Photoshop, Illustrator, After Effects, Premiere, As you can see, I have, if you guys can still see my screen, I have all of them here: Photoshop, After Effects, Adobe Premiere, Illustrator. I have to know all these programs because, you know, it's part of my job. But yeah, I mean, everyone should know Photoshop in some way or form. Where's After Effects? After Effects is what you would use for like more 2D animation. But if you're going to more like visual effects, you're gonna more than likely use two programs for 3D. It's called Maya, Autodesk Maya. And that's like the, I guess, super popular.
So repeat what I studied. What was the name?
It's called Maya, Autodesk Maya. If you're looking to work on like movies, more than likely you're going to be using Maya. And if you're trying to do like, if you're trying to be like an FX person in TV, you're probably looking at Houdini. Side effects Houdini. And this is more so using the visual effects with like really complicated.
So how many apps if we have to do a certain project, do you use in total? 2, 3? What you have to do?
Yeah, well, let's say for Star Wars, I use Cinema 4D. I used Houdini. I use After Effects. I use Photoshop. I use another software called Substance. What else? Yeah, and that's probably it.
And what purpose how to say it? So what exactly you used each software to do relating to the Star Wars effect?
Right. So good question. So with 3D, you choose typically one program to do most of your stuff in. So like say for example, I do all my 3D in Cinema 4D. This is the main program that I use for everything, right? Like I could open up one of those Star Wars scenes and kind of show you how it looks like from a digital perspective. Well, coincidentally, my Cinema 4D decided to freeze, so not great timing. So yeah, Cinema 4D, my main 3D program. I go into Houdini. Houdini is really good with effects like explosions, fire, smoke, sparks, that type of stuff. That's why I would use a program like Houdini, but Houdini is so much more than that. Houdini is such a hard program to learn. It is very difficult, but people that know Houdini, they make a lot of money. So if you want to be successful, if you learn Houdini and you get good at it, you really can't go wrong. Photoshop is just for like making still frames. After Effects is just like putting the edit together. Let me just see if I could pop open one of these scenes real quick. But yeah, you would use a main program to do most of the things in, like Cinema 4D, and then the different softwares just do different parts of the production pipeline. Like Nuke is a software I use. That's where I do like the final stuff, color correcting stuff.
So the pixels used in Photoshop is what is used to help animate different.
No, not exactly. Like Photoshop is just to have like a still frame, and you're just using it as a guide. Like I'm just creating a picture to see, like, I mean, it's kind of, I don't want to say difficult to explain without like more context, but I would render out an image from Cinema 4D, and then I would bring it into like Photoshop or Nuke to create a still image. Like if I had to explain it in a proper way, I'd need to add more context to it. But don't think of it too specific in terms of software right now. What I want you guys to get more so is just like conceptually how to go about approaching these types of things, which is really start doing research on the careers and the different fields, and then figuring out what parts of that field you want to participate in. And naturally, if you know you want to be a motion designer working in advertising, if you had done your research, you would know, oh, well, I need to learn After Effects, I need to learn Photoshop, and I need to learn Cinema 4D.
Can I use any of these apps for anime?
Yes, yes.
Or do you recommend different apps?
Anime is more like frame by frame animation where you're literally drawing every frame. It's interesting that people always ask me about like animes and Japanese anime. I don't want to crush any dreams, but in terms of like market value, it's by far the lowest and it's very hard to sell because just, yeah, animators just generally don't make that much money and it's not really like a commercial-ish aesthetic. And that's only if you're trying to get into like a more commercial field, like visual effects or advertising or tech. Like if you're trying to go the anime route, there's not.
I know there are like some anime that uses this type of graphic designing, like in 3D.
Yeah, like if you're watching Attack on Titan right now,
yeah,
all the
Yes,
let's go. All the Titans, they're all 3D now, right?
Yeah.
Because it's easier to animate. But I mean, obviously, that's definitely one, place you can go in terms of animation. But
I'd like for you to like look at dance because their appearance in the movie itself is sort of like your graphic designing.
Wait, say that again?
I'd like for you to look at dance, GENTZO, and like tell me what you think about the graphic design in that anime.
Danto?
Yeah.
So this is another thing because he just used the word graphic design and like none of this is graphic design what you're seeing. Like graphic design is this is graphic design. Graphic design is flat and it's about the relation of typography with images on a flat screen or with photography. Like this is graphic design. This is graphic design. This is like 3D design. Like graphic design is something very specific.
So would you say graphic design is like flyers and postcards and stuff?
Yes. But typically, like most party flyers are terrible examples of graphic design. And this is another thing about coming into the design fields is really understanding what these terms mean. Like when I say graphic design versus motion design versus 3D design, which is visual effects, like having an understanding of, what all this stuff means. And the reason I go on Pinterest is because as a designer, I always have to keep a huge library of aesthetics and visuals. So when I'm designing, I use a lot of reference and I come back to different things to help my brain come up with imagery. I have like a graphic design section.
So Sekani, unfortunately, the hour has flown by.
It has.
I think it sounds like we need to do another session with you again. To talk through a lot of the questions that students have. Would it be okay if we gather some questions and I can share them with you later?
Yeah.
And then we could perhaps share responses back to the students.
Yeah, no, I think that would be great.
Okay, great. So, Ms. James, I don't know if yes. Or Ms. Ramnarayan, I don't know if you're doing the wrap up, but I personally want to thank Sekani. I'm very excited that he was able to do this. I think it's a great way to give back to students and to show them a bigger world. And you've just encapsulated why we are doing these sessions. It's to show students that there is a bigger world out there, that they can dream big and do a lot of things. And because the world is digitally connected, they don't all have to leave the island to do it. So thank you so much, Sekani, and Suzette, if you can work with the class teachers to collect any questions they may have, I will get them on to Sekani and then get the responses back to you, to share. And so at this point, I will leave you to do the closing.
Well, I know there's supposed to be a student who should speak next.
Okay, fine.
And Ms. Ramnarayan might want to speak as well. Yeah. I'm not seeing her anymore. I hope she's
hold on, one piece of house.
Okay.
Zavik, you need to make me the host again. Thank you.
I like that. Yes, Ms. Ramnarayan.
Good morning again, everyone. And I want to especially thank Sekani for taking the time. I know your schedule is very busy, and we really appreciate that you took the time to give back to us and give back to your school this morning. And I hear from the interactions and from the way students have so many questions this morning that, they really appreciate what you've done this morning here. I hope that they have been inspired. I believe that they have been. And, eyes opened as to what you can do. Sekani, you stand for us as an example of what persons can achieve, starting off as just an ordinary, a regular student at school, stepping into your path of purpose and going out there and doing your best. And we applaud you. We congratulate you for all that you have achieved, and we know you will continue to shine the light and do excellent things out there. And I want to encourage our students that just like Sekani has been able to step up and step out in this way, that these things are waiting for you as well. So continue to shine your light, students, and find your way. And just make the wonderful things happen in your life. Lizelle, thanks so much for facilitating this and sticking with us and making this happen all the time. To all the teachers who have given the time to allow our students to be here, thank you so much for allowing our students to have these, points. And Ms. James George, well, I know you've just been the guiding light on this project, and I really, really appreciate it. So everybody, great morning and rest of the day. Take care now.
Thank
you so much for having me.
There's a student who needs to say something as well.
Yes, I am here. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I want to say on behalf of the students and the working staff of Bishop's High School, where I extend our gratitude and appreciation for what you have done for us this morning. Thank you for inspiring us and enlightening us on the certain situations and encouraging us by letting us know that we can also do great things. Thanks for sharing your story with us. For me personally, it really did a lot just this morning alone. And we welcome you anytime. This is from our student because this seems to be very fun. Honestly, so thank you a lot. And I do wish you good luck in all your future endeavors to come and God's grace. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah, I'll happily be back. If you guys have me back, just let me know. I will make time. But also just want to say to every one of you, there are so many opportunities in so many different fields internationally, just waiting for you guys to fill those positions. So think big, and don't be afraid to go out and pursue something, and don't listen to anyone that tells you you can't do this or you should.
Definitely. Thank you everyone. I'm not sure if you are aware, but these are recorded because we share it internally with all the students. So the one that is up or ought to be up right now is what was done with Cindy Duke, Dr. Cindy Duke. You can look out for that. And you'll see yours very soon as well. We have others being edited as we speak, right? So have a good day. Thanks everybody for coming out.
Thank you guys again for having me.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Yeah, everybody have a good day.